Let me tell you something that may change the way you look at your entire life. The year 2027 is coming, but your future is not waiting for a new calendar. Your future is waiting for a new mind. And that is the part most people don't understand. They think a new year will change them. They think January will give them discipline. They think a new notebook will give them focus. They think a new job will give them confidence. They think a new relationship will give them happiness. They think more money will finally give them peace. They think someday they will wake up and suddenly become the person they have been promising themselves they would become. But someday is not a day on the calendar. Someday is a decision you keep postponing. And if you carry the same mind into 2027 that you carried through every disappointment, every excuse, every fear, every distraction, every negative thought, every unfinished promise, then don't be surprised when 2027 starts looking strangely similar to 2026. Different year, same habits, different calendar, same thinking, different opportunities, same hesitation. Different morning, same excuses. And then you wonder why nothing changes. Here's what most people don't understand. Your life does not change first on the outside. Your life changes first on the inside. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of the thoughts you repeatedly allow to live inside your mind. Think about that. Every action begins as a thought. Every habit begins as a repeated action. Every character begins as a repeated habit. Every destiny begins with character. So if you want to change your destiny, don't start by begging destiny to change. Start by changing the person who is walking toward it. You don't need a different life as much as you need a different operating system for the life you already have. You need to retrain your mind. Not once. Not for 7 days. Not because January is coming. You retrain your mind because the world will constantly try to train it for you. Social media will train it. Fear will train it. Failure will train it. Your environment, your friends will train it. Your past will train it. Your disappointments will train it. Your comfort will train it. And if you don't deliberately train your mind, something else will. That's the battle. Not between you and the world. The deepest battle is between the person you have become and the person you know you could become. I want you to think about the number of promises you have made to yourself. How many times have you said, tomorrow I'll start? How many times did tomorrow arrive and you didn't? How many times did you say, this is the last time? And then you repeated the same behavior? How many times did you tell yourself you would become disciplined? How many times did you tell yourself you would stop wasting time? How many times did you tell yourself you would exercise, read, build the business, learn the skill, save the money, wake up earlier, stop chasing people who don't value you, stop explaining yourself, stop living for approval? How many times? Don't answer me. Answer yourself. Because there comes a moment when a person has to stop asking, why hasn't my life changed? And start asking, why haven't I changed? That question is uncomfortable. But uncomfortable questions can produce powerful lives. You see, we love to blame circumstances because circumstances don't talk back. It's easy to say the economy is bad. It's easy to say nobody supports me. It's easy to say I didn't have the right opportunities. It's easy to say my childhood was difficult. It's easy to say I don't have enough money. It's easy to say I don't know the right people. It's easy to say I'm tired. It's easy to say I will start when life becomes easier. But let me tell you something I learned years ago. Life rarely becomes easier before you become stronger. That's the order. You don't wait for life to become easier. You become better equipped to handle life. You don't wait for fear to disappear. You train yourself to act while fear is present. You don't wait until you feel motivated. You train yourself to move without motivation. You don't wait until you believe in yourself. You keep promises to yourself until belief begins to grow. That is how confidence is built. Confidence isn't something you find sitting around thinking about yourself. Confidence is evidence. You tell yourself, you will wake up early, and you wake up early. Evidence. You tell yourself you will train for 30 minutes, and you train. Evidence. You tell yourself you will read 10 pages, and you read. Evidence. You tell yourself you will stop wasting 3 hours scrolling, and you put the phone down. Evidence. You tell yourself you will finish what you started, and you finish. Evidence. Little by little, your mind begins to say, maybe I can trust this person. And that person is you. That's where transformation begins. Not when the world believes in you. When you begin believing that your own word means something. Because there is a hidden cost to constantly breaking promises to yourself. Nobody may see it. Nobody may know. Nobody may applaud. But your mind knows. Every time you say you're going to do something and don't do it, you teach your brain something. You teach yourself that your intentions don't matter. You teach yourself that your promises are negotiable. You teach yourself that discomfort is a reason to quit. And after enough repetition, quitting doesn't feel like quitting anymore. It feels normal. That's dangerous. Because what you repeatedly tolerate becomes what you repeatedly become. So when you enter 2027, don't just write down what you want. Ask yourself who you must become to carry what you want. That's a different question. Most people want the result without becoming the person capable of producing the result. They want wealth without financial discipline. They want health without physical discipline. They want respect without character. They want freedom without responsibility. They want confidence without courage. They want success without sacrifice. They want a powerful future while maintaining weak daily habits. It doesn't work that way. The harvest does not negotiate with the seed. You plant something every day. Every thought is a seed. Every action is a seed. Every conversation is a seed. Every habit is a seed. Every hour is a seed. And eventually, your life shows you the harvest. That is why 2027 cannot simply be another year of wishing. It has to become a year of deliberate mental training. You have to start catching yourself. Catch the thought before it becomes the action. Catch the excuse before it becomes the habit. Catch the fear before it becomes avoidance. Catch the distraction before it steals the hour. Catch the negative story before you begin believing it, because your mind will tell stories. Some of those stories will be true. Some will be old. Some will be inherited. Some will be created by pain. Some will be created by insecurity. Some will be created by comparison. And some will simply be lies you've repeated so often that they sound like facts. I can't. I'm not ready. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have enough. People like me don't succeed. I've already failed too many times. It's too late. No, stop. Question the sentence. Who told you? Where did you learn it? What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? What would happen if you stopped believing it? Because sometimes the biggest prison in your life isn't the circumstance. It's the meaning you have attached to the circumstance. Two people can experience the same failure and create two completely different futures from it. One says, this proves I'm a failure. The other says, this taught me what I need to improve. Same event, different interpretation, different interpretation, different emotional response, different behavior, different behavior, different results. Different results, different life. That is the power of the mind. And that is why retraining your mind matters. Imagine two young people starting from almost the same place, same neighborhood, similar resources, similar opportunities. One spends every evening consuming content that makes him angry, jealous, distracted, and afraid. He compares his life to people he doesn't even know. He wakes up late. He checks his phone before checking his purpose. He spends his best mental hours reacting to other people's lives. He tells himself he's tired. He delays important work. He avoids difficult conversations. He blames circumstances. The other person has problems too, maybe even more. But every morning he asks a different question. What can I control today? He exercises. He reads. He studies. He learns. He works. He makes mistakes. He reflects. He adjusts. He protects his attention. He doesn't feel motivated every day. He doesn't feel confident every day. He doesn't have perfect circumstances. But he keeps moving. 5 years later, people look at them and say, why is one so far ahead? They call it talent. They call it luck. They call it opportunity. But often, what they are seeing is the compound effect of thousands of invisible decisions. That's what most people miss. Successes is often boring before it becomes impressive. The transformation happens quietly. A page read, a workout completed, a dollar saved, a skill practiced, a distraction rejected, a difficult conversation handled, an early morning, a late night of disciplined work, a temptation resisted, an excuse challenged, a promise kept, nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, but repeated long enough, these ordinary actions become extraordinary results. That is the compound effect. And the compound effect works in both directions. Your good habits compound, your bad habits compound, your discipline compounds, your laziness compounds, your courage compounds, your fear compounds, your knowledge compounds, your ignorance compounds, your confidence compounds, your self-doubt compounds. So don't ask only, what is this habit doing to me today? Ask, where is this habit taking me if I repeat it for 5 years? That question will wake you up, because a bad habit rarely destroys your life in one afternoon. It quietly collects interest. And one day, you look around and realize the consequences have arrived. The same is true for good habits. You don't become powerful in one morning. You become powerful through mornings. You don't become knowledgeable by reading one book. You become knowledgeable by becoming a reader. You don't become disciplined by completing one difficult task. You become disciplined by repeatedly choosing what matters over what feels easy. And that's why I want you to think about 2027 differently. Don't make it merely a year of goals. Make it a year of identity. Don't say, I want to lose weight. Say, I am becoming a person who respects his body. Don't say, I want to make more money. Say, I am becoming a person who creates value and manages money intelligently. Don't say, I want to read more. Say, I am becoming a person who feeds his mind every day. Don't say, I want confidence. Say, I am becoming a person who does difficult things. That's powerful because goals can be abandoned. Identity is harder to abandon. If you see yourself as a disciplined person, you begin behaving differently. If you see yourself as a learner, you become curious. If you see yourself as responsible, you stop blaming. If you see yourself as courageous, you stop waiting for fearlessness. You don't ask, what would I like to do today? You ask, what does the person I'm becoming do today? That question can change your morning. It can change your relationships. It can change your finances. It can change your health. It can change your career. It can change your future. But there's another part of retraining the mind that we have to talk about, pain. Because some of you are not struggling because you're weak. You're struggling because you have been carrying pain without learning how to use it. And pain can become either a prison or a teacher. There was a time in my life when I learned that some of the hardest seasons don't come to destroy you. They come to introduce you to a strength you didn't know you possessed. Think about the person who lost everything and learned to rebuild. Think about the person who was rejected and used that rejection to develop themselves. Think about the person who failed a business and came back wiser. Think about the person who was underestimated and decided to become undeniable. Think about the person who spent years believing they weren't enough and one day decided that they would stop asking the world for permission to become who they were capable of becoming. Pain changes you, but you have a choice about the direction. You can let pain make you bitter, or you can let pain make you deeper. You can let failure make you ashamed, or you can let failure make you wiser. You can let rejection make you hide, or you can let rejection make you refine yourself. You can let criticism destroy you, or you can learn from what is useful and discard what is not. That's mental training. You are not training your mind to pretend everything is wonderful. You are training your mind to remain useful when everything is not wonderful. That's a much higher level of strength. Anybody can think positively when everything is going well. The real test comes when the plan fails, when the money is tight, when someone leaves, when the opportunity disappears, when the work is exhausting, when nobody notices, when your results are slow, when your friends don't understand, when you are doing everything right and still don't see immediate progress. What happens then? That's where your training becomes visible, because life is going to test the mind you build. And if you haven't trained it, the test will expose you. So train now. Train when it's quiet. Train when nobody is watching. Train when you don't feel like it. Train your attention. Train your patience. Train your emotional control. Train your ability to delay gratification. Train your ability to sit alone without needing constant stimulation. Train your ability to finish. Train your ability to say no. Train your ability to hear criticism without collapsing. Train your ability to hear praise without becoming arrogant. Train your ability to lose without losing yourself. Train your ability to win without forgetting yourself. That is what it means to become mentally strong. You don't need to become emotionless. You need to become emotionally intelligent. There is a difference. A strong mind doesn't say, I don't feel fear. A strong mind says, I feel fear and I know what to do next. A strong mind doesn't say, I never get angry. A strong mind says, I can feel anger without allowing anger to drive the car. A strong mind doesn't say, I never get discouraged. A strong mind says, discouragement can visit, but it doesn't get to move in. You have to learn that because emotions are visitors. They are real. They matter, but they are not always instructions. You can feel like quitting and continue. You can feel afraid and act. You can feel tired and rest intelligently rather than abandon your mission. You can feel uncertain and still take the next step. You can feel unprepared and begin learning. That is maturity. And if you want 2027 to be different, you have to stop allowing every emotion to become a command. You don't have to obey every thought. Ride that again in your mind. You don't have to obey every thought. A thought can enter your mind without becoming your identity. You can observe it, question it, challenge it, deride it. That is one of the most powerful skills you can develop, because your mind will produce thousands of thoughts, some helpful, some useless, some creative, some destructive, some wise, some irrational. The goal isn't to control every thought. The goal is to stop letting every thought control you. There is a difference. When you wake up in the morning and your mind says, I'm tired, you can acknowledge it without negotiating with it. When your mind says, I'll do it tomorrow, you can recognize the old pattern. When your mind says, you aren't good enough, you can ask, what action would make me better? When your mind says, nobody believes in you, you can answer, I don't need everybody to believe in me to do today's work. That's retraining, one thought at a time, one decision at a time, one day at a time. And don't underestimate one day. People think one day is small, but your life is made of days. You don't live 5 years at once. You live Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday. You live one morning, one afternoon, one evening. The future is built inside ordinary days. That's why the person who says, I'll change my life next year, is often missing the opportunity to change it today. 2027 doesn't begin when the clock strikes midnight. Your 2027 begins with the habits you're practicing right now. The person you become in 2027 is being trained in 2026. So if you're waiting for January to become disciplined, you're already delaying the training. Start before the year changes. Start before you feel ready. Start while nobody is watching. Start with something small enough that you cannot make excuses. Maybe it's 10 pages. Maybe it's 20 minutes of exercise. Maybe it's 30 minutes of focused work. Maybe it's putting your phone away for the first hour of the day. Maybe it's writing down your priorities before you consume anybody else's opinions. Maybe it's going to bed earlier. Maybe it's learning one valuable skill. Maybe it's saving a small amount of money. Maybe it's making one uncomfortable phone call. Maybe it's finally beginning the project you've talked about for 3 years. Don't worry about making the first step impressive. Make it real, because your brain needs evidence. You don't need another motivational speech. You need evidence. Evidence that you can act. Evidence that you can finish. Evidence that you can endure. Evidence that you can learn. Evidence that you can change. Evidence that you can become someone you respect. And that evidence is created through action. This is where many people get trapped. They consume motivation instead of creating momentum. They watch another video, another speech, another podcast, another book summary, another quote, another inspirational reel. And for 20 minutes, they feel powerful. Then the phone goes down. The old habit returns. The room becomes quiet and nothing changes. Why? Because inspiration without implementation becomes entertainment. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to become committed. Motivation says, I feel like doing it. Commitment says, I'm doing it whether I feel like it or not. Motivation is emotional. Commitment is structural. And if you build your life around motivation, your performance will rise and fall with your mood. But if you build your life around principles, you can keep moving even when the mood disappears. That's why you need rules. Simple rules. Rules for your mornings, rules for your attention, rules for your money, rules for your health, rules for your relationships, rules for your work. Because without rules, your weakest moment becomes the manager of your life. Think about it. If you have no rule about your phone, you will check it whenever you're bored. If you have no rule about food, you will eat whatever emotion asks for. If you have no rule about money, you will spend according to impulse. If you have no rule about your time, everybody else will spend it for you. If you have no rule about your goals, distractions will choose them. You need boundaries, and boundaries are not punishment. Boundaries are protection. You protect what matters. You protect your attention because your attention becomes your life. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. Where your energy goes, your results follow. So ask yourself honestly, what has been receiving most of my attention? My purpose, or other people's opinions, my growth, or other people's lives, my future, or my past, creation or consumption, focus or distraction? That answer will tell you more about your future than your dreams will. Because everybody has dreams. The difference is what you repeatedly pay attention to. You cannot build an extraordinary life while constantly staring at ordinary distractions. You cannot hear your purpose if your mind is permanently filled with noise. You need silence. You need solitude. You need moments when nobody is talking to you. No notifications, no opinions, no endless scrolling. Just you and the questions that matter. Who am I becoming? What am I avoiding? What do I know I need to change? What am I tolerating that is weakening me? Where am I wasting time? Where am I making excuses? What would I do if I stopped caring about looking foolish? What would I start if I knew I could not fail? And perhaps the most important question, what will my life look like 5 years from now if I don't change anything? Sit with that. Don't run from it. Because sometimes the fear of staying the same must become greater than the fear of changing. That's when people move. Pain versus regret. Both hurt, but they hurt differently. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret can stay for years. The pain of getting up early passes. The regret of wasting years does not pass so easily. The pain of learning is temporary. The regret of remaining ignorant can become expensive. The pain of rejection passes. The regret of never trying can stay. The pain of saying no to distractions passes. The regret of realizing what you could have built with those hours can be devastating. You have to decide which pain you are willing to pay, because there is always a price. Successes has a price. Failure has a price. Discipline has a price. Indiscipline has a price. Courage has a price. Cowardice has a price. Growth has a price. Stagnation has a price. You don't get to avoid paying. You only get to choose what you're paying for, and that is a powerful realization. If you understand that, you stop asking, how can I avoid discomfort? You start asking, which discomfort is worth it? That question changes people, because building yourself is uncomfortable, but so is remaining the same. Saving money requires sacrifice, but being broke is uncomfortable. Exercise is uncomfortable, but losing your health is uncomfortable. Studying is uncomfortable, but staying unskilled is uncomfortable. Setting boundaries is uncomfortable, but constantly being used is uncomfortable. Starting a business is uncertain, but spending 10 years wondering what could have happened is also painful. Choose your hard, choose deliberately, and then train your mind to stay with the choice. Because the modern world has become exceptionally good at offering immediate rewards. You can receive entertainment instantly, food instantly, information instantly, lust instantly, approval instantly. But your most valuable results often require delayed gratification. And delayed gratification is becoming a competitive advantage. If you can work today for a result that arrives years later, you possess something many people have lost: patience. If you can study today for an opportunity that may come later, you have an advantage. If you can save today for freedom tomorrow, you have an advantage. If you can train your body today for strength years from now, you have an advantage. If you can build a skill quietly before anyone notices, you have an advantage. The world rewards people who can tolerate the gap between effort and reward. And that gap is where most people quit. They work for 3 months and see nothing. They quit. They exercise for 6 weeks and don't look different. They quit. They post videos for a month and don't get views. They quit. They start a business and don't make money immediately. They quit. They read for 10 days and don't feel smarter. They quit. But what if the result was simply late? What if the seed was underground? What if the roots were growing before the tree became visible? This is why patience matters. Not passive waiting. Active patience. You continue planting. You continue learning. You continue adjusting. You continue improving. You continue showing up. You don't demand that the harvest obey your emotional timetable. You trust the process while remaining responsible for the process. That's different. And sometimes, my friend, you are closer than you think. But you quit because you measured progress incorrectly. You looked at yesterday instead of last year. You looked at today's results instead of today's character. You looked at money instead of skill. You looked at followers instead of value. You looked at applause instead of progress. You looked at the finish line instead of the person you were becoming. Don't make that mistake. Mephorurch what matters. Did you become more disciplined? Did you become more focused? Did you become more patient? Did you become more skilled? Did you become more courageous? Did you become more responsible? Did you become more useful? Did you become more honest with yourself? Those are victories. And those victories compound. I want you to imagine waking up one morning in 2027 and realizing that you are no longer the person who started this journey. Your reactions are different. Your standards are different. Your conversations are different. Your habits are different. Your circle is different. Your finances are different. Your body is different. Your confidence is different. Not because you found a magic trick, because you trained when it was boring. You trained when it was difficult. You trained when nobody applauded. You trained when the results were slow. You trained when your old identity begged you to return. And one day, something inside you becomes quiet. You no longer have to negotiate with yourself about everything. You simply do what must be done. That is freedom. Discipline eventually stops feeling like a cage. It becomes a form of freedom. A disciplined person is free from the tyranny of every impulse, free from every craving, free from every notification, free from every opinion, free from every emotional swing, free from the need to feel ready. And that's what I want you to understand. Discipline isn't about becoming harsh with yourself. It's about becoming trustworthy to yourself. You don't discipline yourself because you hate yourself. You discipline yourself because you value your future. You don't say no because you hate pleasure. You say no because you love something more. You don't wake up early because waking up early is morally superior. You wake up because your purpose deserves your best hours. You don't work hard because suffering is noble. You work hard because there is something meaningful you want to build. That's the difference between punishment and purpose. When your purpose becomes strong enough, sacrifice becomes easier to understand. A person who knows why can tolerate a lot of how. That's why you need a reason, a deep reason, not I want to be successful. That's too vague. Why? Why do you want to succeed? What will success allow you to do? Who will benefit? What kind of person do you want to become? What kind of life do you want to create? What kind of example do you want to set? What do you want your children, your family, your future self to learn from the way you lived? Because when your reason is shallow, your commitment will be shallow. But when your reason reaches your heart, you become difficult to stop. You can tolerate rejection. You can tolerate slow progress. You can tolerate criticism. You can tolerate uncertainty because you know why you're walking. And that's why I want you to stop chasing motivation and start building meaning. Motivation asks, how do I feel? Meaning asks, why does this matter? And when you know why it matters, you don't need to feel excited every morning. You simply move. There will be mornings when you don't want to move. Move anyway. There will be days when you doubt yourself. Work anyway. There will be weeks when progress is invisible. Continue anyway. There will be people who laugh. Continue anyway. There will be moments when you wonder if you're wasting your time. Deflect. Adjust. Then continue. But don't confuse persistence with stubbornness. Dominance doesn't mean repeating the same mistake forever. Persistence means remaining committed to the destination while being flexible about the route. If the strategy isn't working, change the strategy. If the habit isn't sustainable, modify the habit. If the environment is hurting your progress, change the environment. If the people around you constantly pull you backward, create distance. If your schedule is unrealistic, redesign it. If your goal is wrong, admit it. Mental strength isn't pretending you're always right. Mental strength is being willing to correct yourself. That's another part of retraining. You have to become teachable. Because the ego wants to protect the old identity. It says, I already know. Growth says, teach me. The ego says, I don't need help. Wisdom says, I can learn from others. The ego says, I failed. Wisdom says, what did the failure teach me? The ego protects itself. Wisdom improves itself. And in 2027, become a student again. Study people. Study your own behavior. Study your failures. Study your results. Study your environment. Study your emotions. Study your habits. Become curious about yourself. Why do I procrastinate? Why do I become distracted? Why do I seek approval? Why do I avoid difficult tasks? Why do I spend money when I'm emotional? Why do I quit when results are slow? Why do I compare myself? Why do I sabotage progress when things begin going well? Those questions are gold, because when you understand the pattern, you can interrupt the pattern. And once you can interrupt the pattern, you can build a new pattern. That is retraining. You're not trying to become a completely different human overnight. You're becoming slightly better at responding. A little more patience, a little more courage, a little more focus, a little less complaining, a little less scrolling, a little more reading, a little more movement, a little more saving, a little more creating, a little more honesty. 1%. Don't underestimate 1%. 1% today. 1% tomorrow. 1% again. That's how the compound effect works. You may not see it tomorrow, but keep going. Because your future doesn't need you to become perfect. Your future needs you to become consistent. Consistency beats intensity when intensity cannot be sustained. You don't need to transform your entire life in one weekend. You need to stop betraying the small commitments that build your life. Start small, but take it seriously. If you say 5 pages, read 5 pages. If you say 20 push-ups, do 20. If you say 30 minutes of focused work, protect those 30 minutes. If you say no phone until you've completed your first important task, honor it. The point isn't the size of the task. The point is the relationship you are building with your own word. Every completed promise is a brick. Eventually, you build a foundation. And when the foundation becomes strong, confidence becomes natural. Not fake confidence, not loud confidence, quick confidence. The kind where you don't need to tell everybody what you're going to do. You just do it. You don't announce every plan. You build. You don't need everyone to understand. You understand. You don't need applause every morning. You have a reason. You don't need to prove yourself to every critic. Your work will speak. You don't need to win every argument. You need to win the war for your attention. And that war is serious because attention is one of the most valuable assets you possess. The world is competing for it. Every platform wants it. Every advertisement wants it. Every notification wants it. Every outrage wants it. Every distraction wants it. And if you give your attention away carelessly, you are giving away pieces of your life. Because attention is not just attention. Attention is life. Whatever you repeatedly pay attention to becomes part of your mental environment. If you constantly consume fear, you become familiar with fear. If you constantly consume outrage, outrage becomes normal. If you constantly consume comparison, dissatisfaction becomes normal. If you constantly consume negativity, negativity becomes your default language. But if you consume knowledge, practice gratitude, study wisdom, build skills, create meaningful work, and spend time with people who challenge you to grow, your mental environment changes. Your mind needs nutrition too. You wouldn't eat garbage all day and expect your body to feel powerful. Why do you feed your mind garbage and expect your thinking to remain strong? Be careful what enters. Be careful what repeats. Be careful what becomes normal. Normal, because what you normalize, you eventually stop questioning. And that can be dangerous. Knock, nias, discipline. Nog nias, reading, nog nias, exercise, nog nias, saving, nog nias, keeping promises, nog nias, difficult conversations. Normalize learning, no gloss being uncomfortable, no gloss saying no gloss starting again, no gloss being a beginner, no gloss making mistakes without making excuses, no gloss growth. Then one day, the things that used to feel difficult begin to feel ordinary. That's the goal. You don't want discipline to feel extraordinary forever. You want discipline to become normal. You don't want waking up early to be a heroic event. You want it to be Tuesday. You don't want reading to require a motivational speech. You want it to be part of your life. You don't want exercise to depend on inspiration. You want movement to be part of who you are. You don't want focus to be something you occasionally experience. You want concentration to become a trained ability. And that takes repetition. The brain learns through repetition. The body learns through repetition. Character learns through repetition. So repeat what you want to become. Repeat courage. Repeat focus. Repeat discipline. Repeat learning. Repeat patience. Repeat responsibility. Repeat action. And when you fail, don't turn one failure into an identity. You missed a workout. Return, you wasted a day. Return, you made a bad financial decision. Learn and return, you broke a habit. Return, you lost momentum. Return. The powerful word is return. Not perfection, return. A strong person isn't someone who never falls out of rhythm. A strong person knows how to return to the plan, return to the purpose. Return to the discipline, return to yourself, because life will interrupt you, unexpected problems will come, people will disappoint you, plans will fail, your energy will fluctuate. Your emotions will change. There will be seasons when you can do more and seasons when you must do less. But don't confuse a slower season with a failed life. Sometimes wisdom means reducing the pace without abandoning the direction. That's maturity, and there is something else you must retrain your mind to understand. You cannot compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. You don't know their starting point. You don't know their sacrifices. You don't know their private failures. You don't know their opportunities. You don't know their costs. You see the result. You don't see the years. And comparison can make you disrespect your own progress. Stop doing that. Your competition is not the person on the screen. Your competition is the version of you that keeps making excuses. Beat yesterday, then beat yesterday again. Not dramatically, just honestly. If yesterday you focused for 20 minutes, today focus for 25. If yesterday you read 5 pages, today read 6. If yesterday you saved nothing, save something. If yesterday you exercised for 10 minutes, move for 15. Build. Don't obsess over speed. Obsess over direction. Because a person walking slowly in the right direction can eventually pass a person running in circles. And some of you have been running in circles, bussy, exhausted, always moving, but not progressing. Busy is not the same as productive. A full schedule is not necessarily a meaningful life. You can spend 12 hours doing things and accomplish nothing important. So learn to ask, what actually matters? What creates value? What moves the mission? What strengthens the future? What is merely noise? Because if everything is important, nothing is important. You need priorities. And priorities require courage. Because choosing one thing means saying no to another. You cannot do everything. You cannot be everywhere. You cannot please everybody. You cannot chase every opportunity. You cannot answer every message immediately. You cannot consume every piece of information. You cannot pursue 10 goals with the same intensity. Choose. And once you choose, protect the choice. Your future needs your ability to say no. No to distractions. No to unnecessary arguments. No to environments that weaken you. No to habits that steal from you. No to people who repeatedly violate your boundaries. No to the version of you that wants comfort more than growth. Sometimes the most powerful sentence in your life is simply, no, not today. Not because you are afraid, because you have somewhere to go. And when you know where you're going, not every road deserves your footsteps. That's wisdom. Now think about your mornings. Your morning is more important than many people realize. The first hour often establishes the mental direction of the day. If you wake up and immediately enter somebody else's world through notifications, messages, news, arguments, and endless scrolling, you have handed over the steering wheel before you've even stood up. What if 2027 begins differently? What if you wake up and don't immediately consume? What if you breathe? Think, Mav, vrat, plan, pray if that is part of your practice, deflect. Then enter the world. What if you gave your mind something intentional before the world gave it something random? That's a small change, but small changes repeated become identity, and identity becomes destiny. Imagine the first 30 minutes, no noise, no comparison, no endless scrolling, just you. You ask, what matters today? What must be completed? What kind of person do I want to be today? How will I behave when something goes wrong? What temptation will I refuse? What difficult thing will I do? Now you're training. You're not just planning your day. You're programming your response to the day, because challenges are coming. Someone will annoy you. Something will break. A plan will change. A message will upset you. A result will disappoint you. But if you have already decided how you want to respond, you are less likely to be controlled by the moment. Preparation creates freedom. That's why athletes practice before the game. They don't wait until the championship to learn how to perform under pressure. So don't wait until crisis to develop emotional discipline. Train now. When someone cuts you off in traffic, practice patience. When someone disagrees with you, practice listening. When you receive criticism, practice separating truth from ego. When you're tired, practice completing the important task. When you're tempted, practice delay. Every ordinary moment can become training, and suddenly life itself becomes your gym. Every irritation becomes an opportunity to practice patience. Every temptation becomes an opportunity to practice discipline. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity to practice creativity. Every failure becomes an opportunity to practice resilience. Every success becomes an opportunity to practice humility. That's a powerful way to live. You stop asking why this happened to me. You start asking what this moment is asking me to become. That question is transformational, because perhaps the obstacle is not simply blocking your path. Perhaps it is strengthening the person who will eventually walk that path. Think about a muscle. It becomes stronger because it experiences resistance. The mind can be similar. Challenge can strengthen you when you respond intentionally. But resistance can also break you when you continually run from it. So don't run from every difficult thing. Some difficulty is exactly what you need. You need difficult conversations. You need difficult goals. You need difficult workouts. You need difficult books. You need difficult decisions. You need difficult seasons. Not because suffering is automatically good, but because a life without challenge rarely develops deep strength. And if you want a powerful 2027, stop asking for a life with no problems. Ask for the wisdom to handle problems. Stop asking for no obstacles. Ask for the strength to overcome them. Stop asking for certainty. Ask for courage in uncertainty. Stop asking for everyone to support you. Ask for the character to continue when support is absent. That's how you retrain your mind. You stop demanding that reality obey your preferences. You learn to meet reality with strength. And there's freedom in that, because once you accept that life will contain uncertainty, you stop wasting energy being shocked by uncertainty. Of course, there will be problems. Of course, some people will leave. Of course, some plans will fail. Of course, some days will hurt. Of course, progress will be slow sometimes. That's life. Now what? What will you do next? That is the question. Not what happened. What next? Not who is to blame. What next? Not why me. What next? Not when will life become easy. What next? That question moves you forward. And forward is where your future lives. You cannot change yesterday, but you can influence today, and today is enough. Today is where the training happens. Today is where the new identity is built. Today is where the old pattern gets interrupted. Today is where you keep the promise. Today is where you begin. Then tomorrow comes, and you do it again and again and again until something changes. Maybe not the world, maybe not the circumstances. First, you change. Then your choices change. Then your habits change. Then your results begin changing. then your environment notices, then opportunities notice, then people notice. But it starts quietly. It starts with you sitting alone and deciding, I am not carrying the same mind into the next chapter. And that decision has to become more than words. It has to become behavior. Because the world doesn't respond to intentions. The world responds to what you repeatedly do. So if you want 2027 to be different, give yourself a different standard. Not perfection, a standard. A standard for how you speak to yourself. A standard for how you use your time. A standard for what you tolerate. A standard for how you work. A standard for how you recover. A standard for how you treat people. A standard for how you treat yourself. Raise the standard slowly, but raise it because your standards shape your decisions. Your decisions shape your habits. Your habits shape your character. Your character shapes your life. And once you understand that chain, you stop looking for magic. You start looking for leverage, the smallest behavior that can create the biggest long-term difference. Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's your phone. Maybe it's your environment. Maybe it's your spending. Maybe it's your morning. Maybe it's the people you spend time with. Maybe it's one skill. Maybe it's your self-talk. Find the leverage point. Then work on it relentlessly because sometimes one change unlocks 5 others. You fix your sleep and your energy improves. Your energy improves and your workouts improve. Your workouts improve and your confidence improves, your confidence improves, and your work improves, your work improves, and your income may improve, your income improves, and your stress may change. One foundation can affect many rooms. That's why don't try to fix everything at once. Build the foundation, and one of the deepest foundations is self-respect. Self-respect isn't telling yourself you're amazing every morning. Self-respect is living in a way that makes you respect yourself. It is keeping your promises. It is walking away from what repeatedly destroys your peace. It is doing the work you know you need to do. It is admitting when you're wrong. It is refusing to sell your future for temporary pleasure. It is taking responsibility. It is saying, I may not be where I want to be, but I am responsible for where I go next. That's powerful. Because responsibility gives you power, blame gives your power away. If everything is somebody else's fault, then your future is controlled by somebody else. But when you say, this is my responsibility, you reclaim the steering wheel. Maybe you didn't choose your starting point, but you can influence your direction. Maybe you didn't choose what happened, but you can choose your response. Maybe you didn't receive the opportunities you wanted, but you can develop yourself until you are ready when opportunity appears. Maybe your past was unfair. You don't have to let it write every future chapter. That's what retraining means. You teach your mind that the past is information, not a command. Your history is real, but it is not necessarily your destiny. You can learn from it without living inside it. You can honor what happened without becoming trapped there. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop introducing yourself through your wounds. You are more than what happened to you. You are also what you choose next. Remember that because 2027 doesn't need the perfect version of you. It needs the committed version of you. The version willing to learn. The version willing to start small. The version willing to fail. The version willing to return, the version willing to be uncomfortable, the version willing to say, I don't know yet, but I can learn. That's enough to begin. And once you begin, keep going because there will come a moment when your old habits fight back. Your old identity will whisper. Just this once. Start tomorrow. You deserve a break. Nobody will know. You've worked hard enough. What's the difference? That voice may sound reasonable, but sometimes comfort disguises itself as logic. Be careful. Rest when you need rest. But don't call avoidance rest. Recover when you need recovery. But don't call procrastination recovery. Enjoy yourself, but don't call self-destruction enjoyment. Be compassionate with yourself, but don't use compassion as an excuse to remain stuck. There is a difference between being kind to yourself and being dishonest with yourself. Kindness says, you are human. Get back up. Dishonesty says, don't worry about it. Keep doing what you're doing. One helps you grow. The other keeps you comfortable. And comfort can become very expensive. The comfort of staying in the same job while refusing to develop skills. The comfort of staying in the same relationship while refusing to communicate. The comfort of staying in the same routine while complaining about the same results. The comfort of never risking rejection. The comfort of never starting. The comfort of never trying. It feels safe. Until you look back, then you realize safety was not always safety. Sometimes it was simply slow decay. And I don't want you to reach a future where your greatest pain is knowing you had more inside you. I want you to discover it. I want you to test yourself, not against other people, against your own potential. What happens if you give yourself 12 months of serious focus? What happens if you stop changing goals every 2 weeks? What happens if you protect your mornings? What happens if you train your body? What happens if you read 20 pages a day? What happens if you learn one valuable skill deeply? What happens if you stop spending impulsively? What happens if you build instead of consume? What happens if you stop seeking permission? What happens if you practice emotional control? What happens if you stop explaining every move? What happens if you work quietly? What happens if you keep going for a full year? You may surprise yourself, because human beings often underestimate what consistent effort can do. You see the first week, the result looks small. You see the first month, still small. The first 3 months, maybe some progress. But then the curve begins to change, the skill becomes sharper, the body becomes stronger, the mind becomes clearer, the work becomes faster, the confidence becomes quieter. The opportunities become different. The network becomes stronger. The reputation grows. The results begin feeding the habits. And suddenly the person who started quietly becomes difficult to recognize. That is what compound growth looks like. It doesn't ask permission. It accumulates. And your mistakes accumulate too. That's why you must be careful with small things. A little dishonesty, a little laziness, a little resentment, a little overspending, a little scrolling, a little procrastination, a little complaining, a little compromise. None of it feels catastrophic, but repeated. 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 And eventually the small things become the architecture of your life. So watch the small things. Your future is hiding inside them. The way you spend 5 minutes, the way you react to criticism, the way you handle money, the way you speak to people, the way you talk to yourself, the way you begin the morning, the way you end the night. These are not small, they are votes. Every action is a vote for the person you are becoming. You don't need one giant decision. You need thousands of small votes. Vote for discipline. Vote for courage. Vote for patience. Vote for wisdom. Vote for health. Vote for learning. Vote for responsibility. Vote for your future. And some days you will vote incorrectly. Fine. Vote again. Don't turn one bad vote into a lifetime identity. That's where people make the mistake. They fail once and say, I'm inconsistent. They procrastinate once and say, I'm lazy. They lose money once and say, I'm terrible with money. They get rejected once and say, nobody wants me. No, that was an event, not an identity. Separate what happened from who you are. You made a mistake. You are not the mistake. You experienced failure. You are not failure. You had a bad day. You are not a bad life. You lost momentum. You can rebuild momentum. You were afraid. You can still become courageous. Your current condition is not necessarily your permanent identity. And that is one of the most hopeful truths you can carry into 2027. You can change. People change. Habits change. Skills change. Relationships change. Beliefs change. Confidence changes. Bodies change. Careers change. Lives change. But change requires participation. You cannot merely hope. You must practice. Practice the new response. Practice the new habit. Practice the new thought. Practice the new standard. Practice until the new behavior becomes easier than the old one. And don't be discouraged when the beginning feels unnatural. Of course it feels unnatural. You are building something new. When you first learned to walk, walking wasn't natural. When you first learned to read, reading wasn't natural. When you first learned a skill, you were awkward. The beginning of growth often looks like incompetence. Don't be ashamed of being a beginner. Be ashamed only if you refuse to remain a learner. You don't need to be good at it today. You need to be willing to become good at it. That's enough. And if you can maintain that attitude, 2027 can become a year of extraordinary internal transformation. Not because the calendar is magical, because you are finally taking responsibility for the machinery behind your choices. Your mind, your attention, your habits, your beliefs, your emotional responses, your standards, your identity. That's where the real work is. And the deeper you go, the more you realize that success isn't just about getting something. It is about becoming someone. Because if you become the kind of person who can create success, then even if you lose the result, you can rebuild, money can disappear, opportunities can disappear, businesses can fail, plans can collapse. But if you've developed the mind, character, skills, and discipline that created those things, you still possess the builder. And the builder can build again. That's why invest in yourself. Build the person, build the mind, build the character, build the skill, build the discipline, build the relationships, build the ability to think, because things can be taken away. But what you become travels with you. And that is why I want you to enter 2027 differently, not louder, deeper, not more distracted, more focused, not desperate, paired, not obsessed with appearing successful, committed to becoming valuable, not chasing everyone's approval, building self-respect, not trying to control everything, learning to control what belongs to you, your thoughts, your actions, your attention, your choices, your effort, your response. And when you control those things consistently, you begin to discover something remarkable. You may not control the world, but you can become powerful within your world. You may not control the economy, but you can develop skills. You may not control other people's opinions, but you can control whether you let them define you. You may not control every opportunity, but you can prepare. You may not control the timing, but you can work. You may not control the outcome, but you can control the quality of your effort. And that is enough, more than enough to begin. So when the mind says, I can't, ask, what can I learn? When it says it's too late, ask, what can I do today? When it says nobody believes in me, ask, what can I prove to myself? When it says I'm tired, ask, do I need rest or am I avoiding discomfort? When it says I'll start tomorrow, ask, what can I start for 5 minutes right now? Train the questions, because better questions produce better decisions. And better decisions, repeated long enough, produce better lives. You don't need to know everything. You need to know the next right thing, then do it. Then find the next one. Then do that. That's how mountains are climbed. Not by staring at the summit all day, by taking the next step, and then another, and another. And there will be moments when you look up, and the mountain still looks enormous. Keep walking. There will be moments when you feel like you're making no progress. Keep walking. There will be moments when someone faster passes you. Keep walking. There will be moments when you wonder whether it is worth it. Keep walking, because sometimes the greatest transformation happens just after the moment when the old version of you would have quit. That is where character is formed. That is where identity changes. That is where the mind learns. We don't quit simply because it's hard. And once your mind learns that, you become dangerous in the best possible sense. Not dangerous to people. Generous to your excuses. Generous to your procrastination. Generous to your comfort zone. Dangerous to the version of you that keeps saying later. Because now you have evidence. You know you can endure. You know you can learn. You know you can restart. You know you can keep promises. You know you can survive discomfort. And once you know that, your future becomes larger. You start looking at opportunities differently, challenges differently, failure differently, time differently. You realize time is not something you merely spend. Time is something you invest. Every hour is an investment. The question is, what are you buying with it? Are you buying distraction? Are you buying comfort? Are you buying comparison? Or are you buying skill? Health, knowledge, freedom, relationships, meaning? Build carefully, because one day you will look back at the hours you spent and realize they were your life, not money, not possessions, whores, and you cannot purchase yesterday. That's why today matters. Not because today is perfect, because today is available, right now is available. This moment is available. And maybe you've wasted years. Maybe you have. Maybe you made decisions you regret. Maybe you stayed too long. Maybe you quit too early. Maybe you trusted the wrong people. Maybe you ignored your potential. Maybe you spent too much time distracted. Maybe you allowed fear to make decisions. Fine, learn. But don't waste another year punishing yourself for the years you wasted. That would be another form of waste. Take the lesson, carry the wisdom, leave the unnecessary guilt, and move. Your future self doesn't need your shame. Your future self needs your action. And maybe that's the message you need to hear today. Not you should have done better, but you can do better from here. Not you wasted everything, but you still have today. Not you are behind, but your next chapter has not been written. And don't underestimate the power of a person who finally becomes serious about their own life. A person like that becomes different. They stop negotiating with distractions. They stop chasing everyone. They stop explaining every decision. They stop needing permission. They stop waiting for perfect conditions. They stop treating their potential like a joke. They become deliberate. They become patient. They become disciplined. They become selective. They become resilient. They become difficult to manipulate because they know what matters. They become difficult to discourage because they have learned how to return. They become difficult to stop because they no longer depend on feeling good to do good work. And that is the kind of mind you should be training. A mind that can remain calm while the world is noisy. A mind that can remain focused while everyone else is distracted. A mind that can remain humble while receiving praise. A mind that can remain steady while receiving criticism. A mind that can remain hopeful after disappointment. A mind that can remain disciplined after motivation disappears. A mind that can remain courageous while uncertainty remains. That mind is not built in comfort. It is built through practice. And every day gives you practice. So tomorrow morning, when the old voice appears, listen carefully. Don't hate the voice. Just don't obey it automatically. When it says 5 more minutes, decide consciously. When it says check your phone, decide consciously. When it says skip today, decide consciously. When it says you deserve this distraction, decide consciously. You don't need to win every battle, but start becoming aware of the battles. Awareness comes before change. You cannot change what you don't notice. Notice. Notice how you speak. Notice what triggers you. Notice where your time goes. Notice when you procrastinate. Notice what environments make you weak. Notice what people bring out of you. Notice what habits strengthen you. Notice what habits drain you. Become a student of your own life and then make adjustments. It's Not dramatic ones, real ones. 1 drawer cleaned, 1 hour protected, 1 habit removed, 1 habit added, 1 conversation repaired. 1 expense eliminated, 1 skill practiced, 1 page read, 1 workout completed, 1 promise kept. Then again, then again. And somewhere along the way, something begins to shift. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. You begin to believe yourself. Not because someone told you affirmations, because you have evidence. You have proof. You have lived through the process. And now when you say, I will do it, your mind remembers. Last time he said that, he followed through. That's powerful. That is how self-trust is built. And self-trust is one of the foundations of confidence, not pretending, not arrogance. Trust. The quiet knowledge that whatever happens, you will show up for yourself. You will learn. You will adapt. You will keep going. You will return. You will not abandon yourself. And perhaps that is one of the most important commitments you can make before 2027. Don't abandon yourself. Don't abandon your future because today is difficult. Don't abandon your purpose because progress is slow. Don't abandon your growth because somebody laughed. Don't abandon your standards because you are lonely. Don't abandon your discipline because nobody applauded. Don't abandon the person you could become because the person you are today wants comfort. You owe something to your future, and your future is listening to what you do today. Every morning you're casting a vote. Every evening the vote is counted, not publicly, internally, and eventually the results become visible. So cast better votes. Protect the morning, protect the mind, protect the body, protect the attention, protect the mission, protect the people who matter, protect your time, protect your peace. Not because you are fragile, because what you are building is valuable. And the valuable things require protection. Your attention is valuable. Your health is valuable. Your character is valuable. Your future is valuable. Treat them that way. And as you continue into this journey, there will be another level you must understand. Because retraining your mind is not simply about becoming more disciplined. It is about changing what you believe is possible. And that is where the next transformation begins